Welcome Flory Models, I'm Philip Flory. Something a little bit different this time. We're going to be tackling the massive 132nd He111 P1 kit from Revell. Now, to go along with this one, because the kit itself is pretty good, you could do it straight out of the box, but it's just lacking that level of detail. Okay, so what we've got to go with it, we've got the Big Ed set. Not particularly cheap, but when you see exactly what goes in here, you can understand why. We've covered the actual kit in a review before, so obviously you can go back and see that one, but we haven't looked in here. So this is the plan with this build, is that we're pretty much just going to follow the Big Ed set's lead with it. So immediately, as you can see down here, and here we've got various stuff. So if we have a quick flick through, and obviously the idea is what we're going to go through with this one, we got the exterior set. Now the exterior set, as you can see here, has got, as you can see, it's got all the grille works, some of the plating, various bits and pieces in there, which are really going to liven it up and give the external skin of it that little bit of texture. But things like grills and photo etch really are a bit of a must on this type of scale. It's, yeah, when you're doing smaller stuff, you can get away with using metallizer paints on plastic, but when you're to sort of 32nd scale, these details become big focal points in your build. So that's pretty much a must with this one. But as you can see, generally, if we have a quick flick in here, we can see now obviously we've got a lot of actual stuff going on in here. Okay, we just want the instructions out, if we can get them out on their own. Okay, because you can pick and choose exactly what you want. So in this particular piece, as you can see, this one we're going to use it, it's pretty straightforward. What it actually has got is these window sections, which I think again are going to be pretty much a must for this one, really going to liven it up. We've got the grills we were talking about, and obviously these big grills down in here. Also what we've got along here is the plating, and you can see it down here. Now this is all of these bits here, okay, so these squares and the doors, and what it should do is give the actual skin of the model a little bit more texture by giving it that sort of raise, because although it's not bad, the detail, considering it's 1/32, isn't as sharp as perhaps some of the other manufacturers out there who do 1/32 kits. We've got a little bit down here for the gun as well, just to add a little bit more detail in that area. The other set we've got in here, which is the two big ones, if we just work our way through, we want the interior one next. We've got the interior one, which, as you know, there's no point getting this one out. As you can see, we've got more detailed sort of bezels and dials and everything else in there, and obviously the color scheme, and pretty much my hand painting would never keep up with something like this. So that's what this one is. Very nice. Also, this is the self-adhesive one, so it sticks to it. I'm not a fan of it though, so as we'll show with this one, we're going to be going through and taking care of it with some more sort of aftermarket bits and pieces for gluing it down, such as sort of gator glues and stuff like that. Again, as you can see on the back here, you've got a massive load of photo etch, so if we just can get the instructions out without making too much of a mess of it, because I'm trying to keep them as flat as possible. The thing with photo etch, you really want to keep it as flat as you can. Again, just looking through here, as you can see, we've got some more details in for the cockpit area, and really just livening it up and giving it that three-dimensional look by adding various things. So down here, you know, you've got little lumps and bumps they put down here. They're replacing them basically with T-handles for a bit more detail. And in at the back at the same time, you can see this type of the harness work going on in there. All of these throttle controls, which normally I'm not a fan of, but we will do it on this particular one. Then you've got some more stuff going on in the back and everything else, and the actual machine gun magazines, okay, and little things like the doors, cutting the doors opening and putting different doors into it, as you can see, working your way right the way through. So again, pretty much a well worth investment to add up some of that detail inside. The other thing we have got here, which we won't bother getting out, but these are photo etch. These aren't the material ones that you can get now, but these are the photo etch seat belts, which just give you that sort of texture and the actual painting of it, because obviously trying to do stitching work again by hand is almost impossible. The big bits though, quite frankly, are these two. Okay, what we've got here, if we do the right one first, let's do the undercarriage. This here, as I say, we won't bother getting it all out, but as you can see, is a brand new photo etch undercarriage for it. So okay, as you can see, we've got brake lines running down here, but this framework should give us that nice level of detail, where the kit, again, it's not exactly brilliant, so hopefully it will do that. And this panel work you can see just down here, it should give us a far more sort of detailed look to it. By the time it's been painted, weathered and everything else, it should be pretty much spot on for what we needed. The other area, which I think is a little bit of a luxury on this kit, is this. Now this is very weighted because there's quite a few sheets in here, and well worth having a look in it, if I can get in it. Being a zip bag, a little bit easier, but what you've actually got is, as you can see, this guy here, If you haven't guessed it yet, this is the Bombay, all right? And that's why I'm saying it's sort of a luxury, because quite frankly, you're not going to see it unless you've got it on a mirror or in some type of, you know, effect where you've got it off the ground. Now, if I can get this out without bending it, that's why I'm going to have to take out the metal bits first, I think, to try and get this all out. Because deep in here, not only do you get the one, there should be another one, I'm hoping. Here it is. If we can get it out. Again, another rack. So you've got two huge sheets of photo etch. And as I said, it's one of these things where keep it as flat as possible, because as soon as you get a kink in it, it's almost impossible to get it out. So this is what we're talking about. This is the Bombay section. So really it's a case of cutting out the original one down here, okay, and then replacing it with this, which is, from my point of view, if I was building this kit for any other reason, I wouldn't bother with this. You're never going to see it. It's a level of detail, I think, that, you know, as I say, unless you're going to be displaying this upside down, even with a mirror under it, you're never going to see it, okay? So I'm a great believer in doing all the photo etch work that you're going to see, but if you're not going to see it, I don't tend to put them in. A lot of you guys who follow my work will know that sort of through things I've said in the past. But on this particular one, it is such a nice piece of engineering, shall we say, I think it's going to be well worth doing it. Quite frankly, just from showing you guys how to work with photo etch, little things I've learned about photo etch over the last few years especially, but I haven't had a chance to put into practice in a way you guys can see it. So hopefully I can build this Bombay pretty much separate to the actual bomber itself to show you guys the Bombay and everything going together, and I can imagine it's going to be a minimum of a 1-part 30-minute video just on using this. So if you ever wondered about photo etch and stuff like that, this is definitely the video for you, because obviously I'm going to be covering it in depth. The wheel wells, I think they're almost a separate fit before they go in, the same as the Bombay is, okay? So we can show you all about it, see all that detail and everything else before we actually get in there. But you can see you've got absolutely everything, including the doors are all photo etch on it and all the areas. So it's going to be one of those type of, you know, watch this space type things with it. But again, it's a very hefty lump of photo etch, probably one of the biggest and the weightiest bits of photo etch I've seen for an aircraft model, certainly. The other thing as well we got down here, which is a little bit easier, is actually for spraying. This is the mask set for spraying down the decals, basically, or certainly doing the iron crosses here for the markings on the wings. Again, it's one of those things, a lot of people wouldn't mess around with this when you could just put a decal on, and just recently we've learned great techniques of doing decaling without any problem at all. What it does do come with, though, as I say, we have got the mask set for it as well. So if we just have a quick look at the old instructions, because quite frankly, as we all know, there's a lot of glass work on the front here, and trying to do it by hand can be a bit of a nightmare. So actually what you've got here is a system of actually doing that entire front area of all this glass work and all the different bits and pieces on there without having to mess around with trying to cut Tamiya tape in and all those other things. So certainly, again, a very nice thing. But as you say, these are all things that will definitely be a little bit later on in the build. Before then, we've got a lot of photo etch to work to go through. We've got a little bit of planning. We might do a little bit of scratch building as well. This is going to be a long-term project with this one. When we say long-term, it'll be done in the next 2 months, okay? But certainly it's nothing that you're going to suddenly see, you know, 1, 2, miss a few and it's all done. We want to show this one in detail, exactly step by step as we go through the build, the photo etch, the painting and the weathering, and then the finishing off, so you can see everything that we do. So let's get started. Okay, so started work on the cockpit, making our way through it. It's not as complicated as the instructions would have you believe. When you look at the instructions for the cockpit, you know, quite frankly, they do look very, very sort of intimidating. And as I say, starting here at the top, going through and everything else, you can see they're pretty well laid out and going through. My problem is that there's no, with Revell kits, they don't actually have sprue tree numbers, i.e. this one might be A, the other one's B, C, so the numbers are all over the place, so you spend a good amount of your time chasing around trying to find what part is for what and everything else. Okay, so some of them are quite small, quite fiddly, but most of them do tend to be on the sort of smaller trees as we got here. Put this all together. The only problem I had really is this area with the pedals, getting them to be flat up in front. I had one wanting to walk off and everything else. The plastic's particularly soft and molded, and also pulling in this side section and dropping it in. Now, I've got various parts all done, so we've done all this, put it together, so we've made our way basically through to step 11 and 12. But I've got them as separate. So we've got the seat here, because obviously we've got bits of photo etch colour sets on everything to go on there. We've got the main seat itself. A couple of things we've got to do to this one. For instance, this guy here, we've got a very, very pathetic, as you can see, harness, okay? So we've got some good harnesses to go on here, so a gentle rub over with a medium sanding stick should take care of that in no time at all. So we just give that a bit of a rub and take them down, because we want it all to be nice and smooth so we can come in with our own weathering. Now we are going to weather up the cockpit and obviously paint it up, but what I'm going to do is really build it as a whole first and then come in afterwards, okay, to really sort of, you know, pick out all the details, any different colours and things like that. Okay, so we're almost done in those. There we go, that's those, taking care of those harnesses. As I said, we've got colour photo etch ones on there, it'd be a lot better. So we've got the side parts done, they're all done. We've also got this first screen rear door, that one's cleaned up. The only other thing we got to do here, we're going to have our doors slightly open as per the photo etch, which we'll talk about in a moment. But when you look on the other side, it talks about it here, about obviously we've got the doors in the closed position, things like that. We're going to open them up and have them halfway open like this guy down here. Now to do that, the easiest way is just to pop around with the blade. Okay, and I've already started it, so it just needs sort of finishing off, and all we're doing is carefully cutting into the inside here of the actual door section, and then hopefully if we can just cut this one in this side, we should be able to come right the way through. So as I said, this one's almost through here. Could do with a bit sharper blade if we're honest. I'll say it's one of those things you don't really want to do what I'm doing now, rushing this type of cutting, because inevitably you're going to make a mistake, a slip or something like that. Okay. So we're just going to cut, there we go. Cut that one in. And you do tend to find once you've cut one bit in, the rest of it tends to follow quite straightforward. There we go, it's starting to go now. There it is, and we can take it out. So pretty straightforward with the door system out of the way. Then you just want to pop in with your skinny stick and just give this a quick tidy up. Okay, then if you've got any your little files to just get round off those tops. As I say, doing it once it's together will be pretty much a nightmare situation, so doing it this way is a nice easy one. There we go, so that's that one done just like that. So if you wanted to now, you could laminate these up, okay, one on top of the other. I can't remember exactly how they go. This one stepped in here, okay, just around, just like that, in those areas in there. Now going back to the photo etch, obviously we've got our very nice sheet of photo etch just here. You need to decide really what you're going to do, okay, and which parts you're going to use for actually doing this one. So we've got this little bit of detail down here. I don't know if it's worth knocking up all these boxes and everything else for in here. What I will do though, I will take the chain section, which is this guy just down in here, catch him in the light, okay, that's quite nice. So we're going to have that. So what we'll do is we're going to take off this back pulley section and up the one around and change that for the chain one, okay, and we've got the little bits down here to do that. All right, this little guy at the front, obviously he's going to be fitting in up here, okay, so that one can go in, that's pretty straightforward. These ones here for all the radios, communication equipment, everything else like that, we're obviously going to replace all of those. We've got this little floor section just down here, obviously we're going to have that, we'll have these bits as well, all right, and then you've got other decisions. So you've got this strapping on the back of the seat, chances are you never see it, so you know, if you want to do that or not, that's personal choice. This one down here, but to be honest, the rudder pedals, as you might have already noticed, I've got the kit ones on, because those I really don't think it's going to worry too much about it. You've got some little clamps on the back of the seat, again, not too worried about putting those on. These we will do though, these are the actual control arms, okay, for the throttles and everything else like that.
quite integral part of it. You will see those, so we're going to have that. We're going to have all of this in there as well, okay, and then making our way through. Down the back here, we're going to be using these for these boxes and these areas, and the machine gun ones, little bit of updates, okay, so we'll take care of those and put those on. And then down in the back, as we spoke about, this long bar section, definitely we'll be using, having the doors open, the new floor step going in, communications equipment is a must as well. And then we've got these other areas down here and the one else there, so we're going to use that. But it's just that thing, only use what you're happy to do. Sometimes you might not want to use all of that, it may be just too much, okay? Other things perhaps you think, you know, definitely it's a bit of a must, a bit like I do. Certainly when we do other areas on the model, we've got all this photo etch to go on, I'll be sort of picking and choosing what we use. But certainly most of that one, I must admit, is a pretty good one. I'm going to do all the ones we can see quite easily. Some of the stuff around the back, yeah, not really worried about that. Okay, but the stuff inside at the back, again, you're not really going to see so much of it, but I think it'll be nice to show some of those going in, and certainly we can put those together. So what I'm going to do now is clean off all the areas on here that are going to have the colour photo etched on there. So by that, what we actually mean though is obviously a lot of these control ones here, the boxes, all the little knobs and the various things. If we're going to cut this one away down here and redo that one, the floor section, that one can go in now because obviously it's metal colour, but anything which is colour photo etch we don't want to put in, because obviously we're going to paint all this, and the last thing we want to do is paint over everything that's been pre-painted before perhaps. So give me a couple of minutes, we're going to go around, clean off these surfaces, get them all away, and then we can actually get some paint on this. Okay, really pushed on with this one, quite a bit going on. So we've sanded off some of the details I spoke about before, all the ones where all the colour photo etch is going to go on, because obviously we need to put down. We've put obviously some of the photo etch on, so we've got some of this strapping on the back for the seat, and we've obviously removed all the actual any raised details, so we've taken them off the instrument panel, things like that. We've also gone around and put some of the little subsections together, so obviously you've got the seating is all done. We've also removed, as we've done on here, we've got some of these areas where we've got colour photo etch going on, and we've opened up the door area and put little skid areas on, things like that, and we put this bulkhead together. The big thing we've done as well, as you can see down here in the cockpit, we've worked on this well. So same thing again, we've opened up the door, we've cut it open, used the photo etch parts to put those in. We've installed all this subsection. So we said, not only have we got the bulkheads in here, as you can see, but we've also gone along and put in this sort of trestling system, everything in, the floor, some of the little boxes in there, purely because it's going to be easier to paint this entire area and weather it in one than it will be to sort of mess around and glue them in afterwards. So quite a bit of bits and pieces going on, but what we need to do now is get down some paint and we can weather it. We don't want to over clutter it, otherwise we're not going to be able to weather and get in there. So for the weathering purpose, what we're going to do is I'm going to use Tamiya XF22, which is the actual RLM grey. Now RLM2 is really the colour you want to be using for this particular one. For our case though, because it's just going to be a straightforward weathering in, we're going to lighten it up and play with it. You do have other options, as I have got here somewhere, or did have somewhere, here we are. So you've got the guns, but if you look at between the Tamiya and the guns, they are totally different colours. Which one's correct? It's one of those things. It's very difficult with this type of thing, knowing which is the right one, which isn't, and everything else like that. We're going to lighten ours up. We're also going to do dry brushing in there, and we're going to give it a wash as well. So I'm just going to basically use the RLM22 as our base. Then we're going to light it for a bleaching effect into weathering it. Then it's obviously going to be dry brushed and washed as well. So between all those techniques, it will change any base colour. Because we're going to be doing all these different things to it, we're going to spray this almost neat. Not totally, we are going to use a little bit of thinners in here. So I've got a bit of X20A, and if I just grab a pipette, just grab a clean one, just for getting some of that out of the bottle. Okay, so all we're going to do is just going to pop a little bit of thinners in there, not too much, probably just a few drops. Okay, probably not even as much as that. I'll just have a bit of that out. Okay, so it's literally probably, I don't know, half a mil. So in a percentage ratio, what I'm doing is 75% paint to 25% thinners. Grab my little mixing brush. Okay, bit of a mix down in here. So this is going to be coat 1. And this literally is, check our spray, there's our colour. It's quite thick, so what we're going to do is everywhere down in this section altogether, So we're just coming in from all the different areas. It's a nice blast coat, if you like. It's just a question of getting it all in, all the areas. Okay, just like so. Now, the bomb area in the middle, we have got some windows, so we are going to have to do that as well. Okay, so we're just coming in the centre one, and we're going to do obviously all around the front part of that cockpit. Going in. As I say, don't have to be particularly nice or anything, but there we go. That's looking somewhat different, really sort of livening it up and everything else. Okay. All you want to do is just make sure you've covered everywhere, but obviously we've got multiple coats of paint coming in again, so that's that side done. We've got to do the same on the other, which is a little bit more easy. Down these down here. Keeping it quite random. Just like so, and then obviously we've got to do these areas in here, so we can just turn down this guy, back, just out of paint there. Okay, so what we're going to do is spray the entire rest of it. We'll just dry that back. Okay, we're going to spray everywhere. So when we say everywhere, we mean everywhere. So those side panels, all of the cockpit section, any boxes, the seats, anything that really is going to be in the cockpit area needs to be painted now. The idea is it's all painted, we can weather it in, we can get the colour photo etch and move on with it. So I'll get the rest of it done, then we can come back and continue weathering it through. Okay, so with these parts all dry now, looking pretty good, as I say, we just want to weather it out. We haven't done things like ejector pin marks inside there and all the rest of it, because let's face it, there's tons of them, and we just want to get on with it. You're not going to really see them. By the time we bleach them out and things like that, hopefully it won't be much at all. Now, down in here, you might be able to see we've got a little amount of paint left. What we're going to do is first we're going to thin it 50-50 of what's in there. Okay. Then we're just going to grab a brush full. A cleaner brush, it might be nice. It's an old one down here. Just going to get a brush full of white. Okay, so we're just going to pop that in. Give it a bit of a mix round. Okay, and we're just going to come in, going to grab another one. So what we're trying to do is just make a far lighter contrast of what we've got. So we'll call it 3, because this is an old thin paint anyway. Make sure it gets a good mix inside here. Okay. Now you might see a usual thing, the bristles, you can see them quite clearly on the brush. It doesn't take much to clean them off. There's a rogue bristle just come off there. Always make sure you don't do that. So what we need to do now is blow out what we've got in here. Okay, so we've just got an old bit of tissue here. We'll just get rid of it till we get the new colour come through, which should be a lot lighter to what we had. Okay, and then what we're going to do is just going to come along here, and we're only random picking out the centres of the panels. Okay. And it doesn't have to be that precise. You know, we're not going to get any awards for in here. We're literally just trying to randomise it and break it up. And this is just the way we're doing it in through here. Okay. So just pop it around certain areas. Okay, through after. A little bit on the floor perhaps. In here. any areas where you haven't got enough paint, i.e. you've missed, you can just go over it now just to sort of backfill it and everything else. Okay, once we're done blending in, filtering technique, whatever you want to call it, just some light blast right over everything, and all we're trying to do is just sort of break it up just a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer. So we're going to do just the same on the other side. So I'm just going to pick out some random type things. It's certainly easier doing it here where we've got nothing in the way. Okay, and that's it, just to sort of break it up and sort of randomize it, just to make it look a bit nicer. And then down here in the cockpit area, just clean the needle. We're just going to pick out a few little bits just down in here. Okay, so we're just going to come in, we're just going to put in and again filter right over to sort of blend it through. And then on the cockpit, so in between things, and again a filter effect right over, same in here with the seat. Side panels, things like that. But just remember to go right over them completely. Okay, in like that, and then we've got obviously quite a bit of paint left over, so we're just going to tip this, okay, in here. So we're left with just literally a tiny bit in there. Okay, and then what we're going to do is going to come along with some black. Okay, so for this one we're going to use the rubber black, and we're going to make it up to a very dark. So we've got a light version in there, and this is going to just sort of add our detail. Again, we're going to thin it 50-50 with what we've got in there. So obviously this is very much a coat of thinners now. Okay, and we're just going to come in with our black. I think we're going to need a few of these. We want to darken this right up, as you can see, into a very dark mix. Okay, and we're just going to thin that a little bit more. A few more drops in there. Okay, good mix. Alright, and we're just going to blow this through. We've got a very deep colour. Okay, so it's a nice thin mix coming through, so it's going to be pretty dark, but because it's thin it should blend. So what we're going to do is we're just going to try and pick out the raised detail. So where we've done like the bleaching, tried to do it in between lines, this is more on top, but this one is a lot more direct in its way. So for instance, we're just going to pick out, I'm just worried about this blowing around, but you can probably see we're just trying to put this shadowing effect in. As you can see, it doesn't just put down a line. This you have to keep going back and forth to get it to come through. It just sort of fades away to sort of nothing. So we're just going to pop around on some joins and bolts and things, and then perhaps down in here. And just sort of add some of this sort of shadowing effect. Okay, so we're just sort of trying to grime it all up, and obviously we've got washes and things that are going to go on this later. Okay, so we're just trying to perhaps liven up, for want of a better word. Okay, so just giving it a little bit of three-dimensional texture, if you like. Okay, so we're just going to pop a line of it down there. Let's come up around the doors. To be honest, airbrush isn't exactly behaving itself, it's a bit stoppy-starty. So we just pump it through, pinch clean the needle. Okay, let me just try this again. Okay, just get around the door. Not much going on down there. And then obviously in the back here like we did before, so it's just going to be a case of following down some of these lines. You can see we're doing big swathes of area. Because we're trying to make this into more of a stain than anything else. Okay. Now, when I do dry brushing, the way I like to do it now, if I can find my brush, I take a little bit of metallizer paints. So if we just use a aluminium, okay, it's quite strong. All we're going to do, very, very light work with this one because as I say, it's quite strong. I have a separate brush for it, so we're just going to poke it in like you would do normal dry brushing. So we're just going to take a piece of kitchen roll, okay, and get rid of it all. Okay, just like so. Then we're going to let it dry. Now, because this is a lacquer based paint, it dries extremely quickly. You won't have to wait too long for this. But what it will enable us to do, or hopefully to do, is just going to flick around and put some on. But it's more like sort of rub and buff stuff, because you don't have to do much at all on this. So what we're going to do is just going to pop around here and just going to add some very light scuffing work to everything. Now we have got various things. Now you don't want to go totally over the top with this. Remember, we're putting this on for an effect rather than anything else. Okay, so you're just trying to put it down quite sparingly. Some areas obviously heavier than others, so perhaps around the control column, the backs of, but it should all generally work together to give us a type of grime effect. So we're just going to do some bits because we know this is a sort of seat area, okay, but this we can wear in a little bit. We know this is going to get a bit of traffic all along here, a little bit around the controls, this bit down here, okay, but it's knowing when to stop, so we're going to hold off at that point. Okay, a little bit perhaps more down on these because they're quite mechanical. Okay, so we're just going to look at the seat. We know obviously this is the trim wheel we're assuming, so the trim wheel would have caught quite a bit of work. Okay, edges of the seats all the way around, perhaps inside as well. It would have been worn by multiple crews coming in and out, so I'm just going to wear that down. Okay, just in there like that, and then we can work our way around the entire rest of it. So we've got some electrical wiring down here, that's going to get a bit of a rub. Obviously this would have got quite a bit of traffic with the crews going back and forth, holding on to various things as they go. But you'll find this stuff will go on and on, okay? But also it gives it that sort of metal look to it, depending on how you catch it on the light. And then obviously we can go around and do other items, just like so, to give us that effect. Okay, so we know for sure this would have caught some wear and tear. been rubbed off, and then obviously generally down in here this is going to get it as well, so we're just going to go through. As you can see, depending how you catch it in the light, it should change it, and that's the nice thing about using this stuff very sparingly. It should come along and then going in and out of everything. And as you say, when you compare it with the two like that, hopefully you can see it's quite noticeable. We're getting quite low on this, and we're just going to have a quick refill. And so when we say refill, it's almost just a dab like that, nothing really to it. Onto the scrub side, off again. Okay, and then in here we're going to be a little bit more delicate because we've got a loaded brush full, so we're just going to put plenty around the door, scuff area perhaps on the floor, so getting plenty down here of traffic, and then over the boxes. Okay, and now we're getting back down to not a lot at all. We can start to scrub our way around. Here. So it's the Bombay. There we go. Really straightforward. Very, very quick. Very, very simple. What we're going to do now is de-silver ourselves. Got a little bit of silver on. We want to get rid of that. Clean out the paints, the brushes, the airbrush, everything else like that, and then we can come back and we give this a wash.